Hello, my name's Nicole and I work here at Leap Country Park. I'm here today to talk to you about the hidden histories found at Leap. Did you know that the name Leap is believed to come from the Old English for the word leaping place, and it could be found on maps from as early as 1575. So come with me as we take a look at Leap through the ages. We start here on the cliff top at the Stone Point ROC post. Leap's post was built in 1962 for the Royal Observer Corps. Manned by civilian volunteers, in the event of a nuclear attack, they'd be expected to leave their families and live in these underground shelters for up to 3 weeks at a time. They'd monitor the conditions outside and report back to the UK's warning and monitoring organisations, who would then coordinate the rescue and resources to help with the nuclear blast. This post was made redundant in 1992 with the general stand down of the ROC, and although most of the shelters were demolished or filled with concrete, Stone Point was abandoned. It remained locked with original documents, reports and posters until it was restored in 2014. You can use this periscope to look down into the shelter and see what it would have been like for those volunteers who would have been down there for days on end. So as we leave the ROC post, just a short walk down the beach or cliff top path will take us to one of the most significant historical sites in the local area. Not only did Leap have military presence with the ROC post, but it also had a part to play in the success of Operation Overlord, or more famously known as D-Day. Leap has significant physical reminders of the part it played in the D-Day landings in Normandy. So let's go and take a look. On the 6th of June 1944, thousands of troops left Britain for the beaches of Normandy. This was D-Day, the start of the Great Campaign to drive the German army out of France and ultimately end World War II. Leap had 3 important parts to play in the success of Operation Overlord. It was a major departure point for troops, vehicles and supplies. It was a construction site for part of the floating Mulberry Harbour, and it was the main land base for the Pluto fuel line. After the failed Dieppe landings of 1942, Allied commanders realised that they couldn't rely on capturing a French port to support the retaking of continental Europe, and so the concept of a floating harbour that could be towed across the channel was born. So here to the east of the Lookout and Family Beach, you find many of the D-Day remains, so you can try and imagine what it would have been like for those hundreds of men waiting to make the momentous journey across the channel. The dolphins, these beach hardening platforms that look like giant bars of chocolate, the pillars and the concrete floors are all remains of the structures used to construct the Mulberry Harbour and load ships departing for Normandy. The Pluto pipeline under the ocean was put in place to ensure that advancing troops had a constant supply of fuel. It was a solo pipeline laid at Leap and on Thorness Bay on the Isle of Wight. The Leap end of the line was initially the only location on the UK mainland, and by the time the pipeline closed in 1945, it had pumped well over 170 million gallons of fuel to Allied forces. While it's clear that we have some important 20th century history here at Leap, to the western shoreline we also have history from earlier periods. So come with me as we head to the west of the Lookout and take a step even further back in time. So we're here now to the west of the Lookout, to the Grade 2 listed building which is nearly 200 years old. This watch house and the 5 cottages up on the cliff top have become a staple part of the Leap scenery. But do you know why they were built? For smuggling. Now, smugglers went to great lengths to ensure that they remained undetected, and so there's very little evidence of smuggling at Leap before 1821. But that being said, we know that the Isle of Wight made the perfect stop-off point on the long journey back from Europe, and with no commercial ports or customs houses, and linked straight down the Darkwater River into the cover of the New Forest, Leap was the perfect place for smugglers to land. In 1819, Leap's Prevention Station was established with its first officer-in-chief, David Henry Watson. Having a station at Leap meant that the frequently used Darkwater River was under constant surveillance. And so the first record of smuggling at Leap was from December 1821. David Henry Watson and his crew captured a total of 181 barrels of gin and brandy. That's around 29,500 litres of alcohol. And their success continued. Between 1821 and 1857, more than 1,037 casks of spirits, 5 kilograms of tobacco, and a lace-making machine were captured by the Coast Guards at Leap. With no purpose-built station, the Coast Guards had to rely on lodgings with local families. But with most families being involved in the smuggling trade, they were very often not welcomed. So in 1825, the construction began of 5 terrace cottages and the watch house for the Coast Guards and their families to live in, and these are the buildings that still stand here today. In 1922, these cottages came to the end of their occupational life and reverted to the Leap estate. So we're here now in Leap's conservation area, more specifically in the sensory garden, and this whole area is located just across the road from the Clifftop car park. Many years ago though, this didn't used to be a nature reserve. It used to be the site of Solent Cottage. Solent Cottage was built in the late 1800s. Now in the 18th and 19th century, it was very common for a country residence to be called a cottage to differentiate from the inner city townhouses. But with 15 bedrooms and 4 reception rooms, Solent Cottage wasn't small in size like the cottages we may think of today. Solent Cottage had many notable occupants, including the Dowager Countess of Scarborough, Lady Frederica Drummond, who was the daughter of Andrew Robert Drummond of Cadland Estate. The house went untenanted in 1959, and after many failed planning applications, it just fell into disrepair, until Hampshire County Council took ownership in 1997. The remains of the house were knocked down and the overgrown land was turned into what we now use as our conservation area and nature reserve. The classroom and sensory garden, established by the fantastic work of the Friends of Leap, stands on what was the grounds of Solent Cottage. The boardwalk leads round to the Bird Hide, which overlooks the Darkwater River that ran down the back of the Solent Cottage, and you can even still find the remains of the steps down to the old bog garden. Thank you so much for joining me today as we explored the hidden histories of Leap. The best way for you to find out more is to come down and visit us yourself. You can pick up our information booklets and also information about the D-Day audio tour from the Visitor Services desk inside the lookout. So I'm off to head into the lookout now to grab a coffee and enjoy the views across the Solent over to the Isle of Wight. Hopefully you can come down and have a little explore yourself at some time soon. If you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. There's going to be more hidden history videos joining this channel very soon.